So for next Tuesday, I'm going to cover the rest of the sorting algorithms. And sorting algorithm, the whole chapter, including quick sorts, heap sorts, and the linear time sorting algorithms will not be covered in the first midterm exam. There will be no questions regarding quick sort, heap sorts, or everything in this sorting algorithms content. So next Tuesday will not be revealing, but I will wrap up the sorting algorithms. Yeah, the test date is on October 1st, Thursday. So last time I remember someone asked that if I can upload the solution to the first assignments, and I will do that later today or tomorrow. Okay, I need to make the format correct. And a study guide. So a study guide for the first midterm. If you mean the guide for preparing the first midterm, yes, I have some slides prepared that I'm going to play today. So our TA is working on the assignment 1, and it is supposed to be done by the end of this week, by this Sunday. Okay, so I will probably start the heap sort, and then after heap sort is done, I will take questions. I will go over the review slides, and then I will take questions. All right. Actually, in the last lecture, we are done with the two important auxiliary function or helper functions for implementing heap sorts. The first one is the max heapify, okay, because we want to that max heapify is a function that takes an array or a heap as input and an index as input, so that it will mix the subtree at that given index into a max heap. But that function has a limitation, which is its assumption. It assumes that the subtrees that rooted at the both left child and right child should already be a max heap. Okay, so that is assumption for that max heapify function, and we use the max heapify to implement the second function, the second helper function, which is the build max heap. So this build max heap function will take an unordered array as inputs and makes all the elements in that array a max heap. So after the build max heap is called, we have a complete correctly formed max heap data structure. Okay, so that two functions are the critical steps or critical components of the heap sort algorithm. Okay, because later on we're gonna operate on the results of a max heap. So in order to do heap sorts, we will start by first calling build max heap procedure to build a max heap. Okay, and we take an array as inputs and build a max heap with all the elements in that input array. So the heap size should be equal to the length of array. Okay, and then after we have built a max heap, then the root element is the biggest one, because that is the property of a max heap, right? Remember, the max heap requires that the parent node is always greater than its children node. So the very beginning elements of a max heap must be the greatest one, right? So the greatest elements or the root node in the heap, we need to put it into the correct position by exchanging it with the last elements in the array or in the heap, okay? So after we have do the exchange, then we can discard that new ending elements from the heap, because that element is already sorted. It is the biggest. After we move it to the end, it's already sorted. Then we can remove it from the heap by decrementing the heap size attributes. But the element is still in the array, right? We are not shrinking the array. We're not shrinking the input array. We're just decreasing the heap size property, okay? So that the heap shrinks, but the array remains the same length. Okay, all the elements are still in the array, but the heap keeps shrinking as we exchange the root node with the last element. Okay, so as a consequence, the new root elements might violate the max heap property because we exchange the correct root with some random number. Okay, so it will violate the max heap property. So we need to call max heapify on the root again. Okay, so we need to call the max heapify to store the max heap property. Okay, which will result in a new max heap, but is smaller in size. Okay, because we just kicked out one element. And we will repeat these steps from the max heap of size n-1 down to a max heap of size 2. Okay, so after a max heap has only there's only 2 elements, we just need to switch it and then we are done because there's only 1 element left. So the overall principle, overall idea of max heap is like this. And the implementation of the algorithm is also quite straightforward. Okay, so this is the pseudocode for the max heap Heapsort algorithm. In line 1, we will call the build max heap, right? And there's a for loop in the main body. The for loop ranges from the last element down to the beginning, okay? And we exchange the root node with the last elements, okay? And then after we exchange it, we will shrink the size or decrement the size by 1. And afterwards, we will call max heapify again on the input node, on the root node. Okay, so in order to maintain the max heap property. Okay. I think it will be easy to understand if we use an example here. So in this example, okay, so it's already a max heap, right? Say, imagine the build max heap is done on an unordered sequence, and we have the build max. We have the array already in a max heap. Okay, so the I starts with the last elements, and then the first line within the for loop is to exchange A1 with the AI, right? So after the exchange, and we decrement the heap size by 1. So now there's no branch connection from the node here to here, right? So this one, the connection is gone because this node is isolated. It is moved out of the heap, okay? And we need to call the max heapify on the root node again, because here the newly obtained root node, it violates the max heap property. It is smaller than this element and then this element. So we need to call max heap on this root node, and so that the value 1, the element 1 here will get flow down to the correct position. Okay. So we need to let it flow down and move the correct elements up to the right position. So that's the results of calling max heapify in line 5. So now we are done with the first iteration of the for loop. Okay, and then what we're gonna do next is the same operations. Okay, same processes within each iteration, and next I is to 9, so we will switch the elements with the root, okay, right, and shrink the heap size. And again, we need to flow that violating element down to the correct position, right? That's a second loop down, second iteration down, okay? So after the third iteration, right, that's all we have. And the fourth element iteration is done, okay? So I will just quickly play all the remaining parts of the whole procedure, okay? So until we've reached a point where there is 2 elements, right? There's 2 elements, we just need to switch it. And then there's only 1 element left, and that is something we don't need to care about because there's only 1 thing left, and that is the smallest elements in the array, okay? So the array now is in the sorted order, right? If we look at from the first element here and look at from by each row, it's in a sorted order, okay? So the elements, so the Heapsort algorithm is correct because each time we will make sure that we put the largest element, which is the root node of a max heap, back to the end of an array, okay? And then we will call max heapify again, and max heapify will ensure that we will correctly select the largest elements within within the tree structure to make it the new roots, and then we will switch the roots with the ending elements again, okay? So it's a pretty clearly defined procedure, and as we will see, it is elegantly implemented. The procedure is straightforward to understand, and the time efficiency or the running time it costs is also pretty good. All right. So if we analyze the running time of it, it's also straightforward because in the previous lectures, we already know that the build max heap takes big O running time, and it's a for loop, right? The for loop basically ranges from the last element to the second element of the input array. And so there's n-1 calls to the max heapify procedure. And we already know that each max heapify procedure takes logarithm of n time. So in total, that'll be big O of n times logarithm of n. And that is the running time analysis for max heap, okay? So finally, let's look at the pros and cons. Okay, so far we have analyzed the quicksort algorithm and the heap sort. We know that quicksort is kind of it's fast and it's in place, but so when we analyze the average case running time, it's kind of tricky because if the partition on each step of the quicksorts is not balanced, then the result would be suboptimal, right? We want the partition to be as balanced as possible, so that we use some randomized partition operation to select in each time of the partition, we select the random elements as the pivots, okay? And compared to quicksorts, another advantage of heap sorts is that there's less, or there are fewer recursive calls than quicksorts, because quicksorts split the original problem into two subproblems, and each subproblem will be solved by a recursive call. So that means a recursive call is handled in the computer by remember the current call position, by putting the current call position into the stack. So if there are too many recursive calls, then the stack will be used, will be occupied with too many, it will occupy too many memory space in stack. So compared to that, the Heapsort has such an advantage of using less stack space, okay? And the Heapsort is also a pretty consistent algorithm that performs almost equally well in best, average case, or worst cases, okay? So maybe one cons of it is that it's not a stable sorts algorithm. So that means the relative positions or relative orders of elements that have the same values are not preserved. Okay, so sometimes we want to preserve that relative order, because the key that are used to sort may just be one property or one attribute for each element, and each element could be a very complex object that are associated with other attributes. So if the relative position information is important, if that is important, then we want to use some stable sort algorithms. And for that, we will see one more example in the next linear running time algorithms. Okay, so that's for the Heapsort. So let me stop the video, stop the recording.